Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journey, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2023. And that brings us to a title that had been in the Criterion Collection physical media catalog at spy number 745. We lost it in terms of Criterion out of print status for a while there, but it seems now to have reemerged thanks to this new release on the occasion of this year, 2023, this time employing the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo format option. And I'm speaking of a work which is described as being from the year 1973, and the name of the filmmaker is Nicolas Roeg. The name of the work is Don't Look Now. This is the work, the chilling and very unforgettable work from 1973, and it is from the filmmaker Nicolas Roeg, and this is a screenplay credited to Alan Scott and Chris Bryant, based upon the work by Daphne du Maurier, and directed by Nicolas Roeg. And we have here a brilliant cast, included in which are Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland in what must be described as being a very intense and powerhouse performances across the board. And this is a very intense film. This is a film that is very enthralling, very haunting, scary, and oftentimes mysterious and enigmatic, and prone, I think, to many interpretations that I think reflect the complex web that we see laid out before our very eyes when you watch this work, which is Don't Look Now. Don't Look Now, a work that, as I say, had been in the Criterion Collection previously in a really great Blu-ray. But my understanding was that it fell out of print for some time there in the Criterion Collection catalog context, only to now this year reemerge in this way with this 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo edition. And we'll speak a little bit later in this video about aspects of the presentation and this release. But it's wonderful to see this film, Nicolas Roeg's Don't Look Now, in the collection, the physical media catalog, for a number of reasons. One of which I think could be said to be relating to the plot or story structure of this film. And this is where we already get a sense of how hair-raising, how electrifying, how terrifying, and how harrowing and haunting this work is, Don't Look Now. We start with a couple, and this couple is portrayed by Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland, respectively, and we see them in this very, I think, idyllic and peaceful situation involving their home and family situation, working and passing the time, and also the family life and the children. But as soon as we see established this scenic and quite peaceful situation, we are also confronted, as are the characters in this film, every one of us is confronted with a very sudden and shocking turn of events. It's very sudden, it's very shocking, it seems to come out of nowhere in a manner of speaking. But be that as it may, it is incredibly harrowing, quite tragic, and intense and very severe, and significantly so, to the point that it really affects and has the potential of really shattering the lives of the main characters of this film, such that we then understand that through a set of circumstances we find this couple, our main character protagonists, the Julie Christie character and Donald Sutherland character, Laura and John. We see them sometime later in the environment of Venice, Italy. And we understand that this has to do with John's work, but also we understand that there is some kind of a therapeutic time for recovery, a sort of healing process with respect to this set of tragic and horrifying events that have taken place in the opening parts of the film. Well, now we see the couple trying, if at all, to be able to, or trying to endeavor to, if at all possible, to make sense of things, to remedy or repair certain aspects of their own relationship vis-a-vis each other, trying to come to grips with this set of events that has occurred with respect to their family and to their young daughter. And part of this milieu, part of this exploration, part of this examination also has to do with the haunting aspects that accompany their lives and their psychological states, and also as it seems to be expressed both outwardly and indeed inwardly. Through the context of the environment and setting that is Venice itself. And what I mean by this is also to introduce the element of the mysterious and indeed also the enigmatic and perhaps even horrifying, because we also have certain other plot threads occurring as this couple, John and Laura, are in Venice. So we see them encountering a number of other people that they meet, and through these encounters we seem to be connected to this, the other world, the spirit realm, which seems to be connecting to a sense of haunting or ghosts, perhaps ghosts or ghosty-like figures. Specters are haunting the place or trying to send messages to the people who are quote-unquote in the realm of the living. And so this introduces the element of who is really alive and who is not quite dead yet. And so this adds to the sense of the foreboding and the horrifying and the creepy, as well as reminding us of how our main characters are deeply have been deeply harmed and have been are very much in a type of emotional and psychological pain, and they're trying also very much to see what they can do to remedy this pain. Part of that solution might be to turn to this realm of the unexpected and the unknown, namely the afterlife, and whether there is some kind of solution or answer that can be found in the context of the afterlife. And this brings into account other characters that we meet. Also, it brings into account the notion of what the characters are experiencing now in the moment, thanks in large part to the way that the film and the photography and the editing style presents us with information. We are oftentimes asked to consider a setting or a scenario in this film that is edited in a very frenzied pace that sometimes jumps to different situations, sometimes jumps in time and place altogether, to give us a sense of unease and also perhaps to give us a sense of jumping back and forth in time. And this type of editing technique, being thrilling in of itself as a type of cinematic style, it's very absorbing. It also adds to the haunting air of mystery. It also gives us a sense of the knowledge that if we are jumping back and forth in time, are we experiencing some kind of subjective viewpoint of the circumstances that we're watching, subjective viewpoint from one or more of the characters. In other words, is this something that itself could be some kind of otherworldly experience, some kind of the idea of life flashing before one's eyes in a given moment of intense extremity? And if that's the case, is this also somehow or another connected to this earlier discussion of connections to the unknown and connections to the afterlife? Is this in some way or another a type of foreboding or foreshadowing of things to come that are itself very mysterious, intense, and potentially deadly indeed? And that also introduces to the equation the notion of ghosts and also the notion of what or who is haunting or stalking or occupying the dark and deserted pathways of the Venice landscape, both at day and at night. And what does that mean in terms of our main character's quest to find out the secret as to what is the source of their trauma, what is the source of their concern, and indeed, is there an answer to the question that they are yearning for? In other words, is there a way by which they can find a concrete solution to the questions that have also troubled them in terms of the trauma and pain that they have experienced from the very outset of the film. Will they be able to find answers, John and Laura? Or will those answers, or will that quest lead them to a place that is truly terrifying and truly unexpected indeed? Or is it something of a hybrid, something in between? If you haven't seen the film yet, you're going to have to watch the film to find out. It is extraordinary, the twists and turns that this film takes. So, Don't Look Now is a really scary film, and it's so terrifying. But it is also so very intensely personal. It is also a film about trauma, and it's about recovery, and it's about recovery in individual unspoken terms. It's also about recovery in the sense of how do people recover in terms of their relationships after something very sad and very tragic has occurred. How do couples, in case John and Laura, how do they hope to try to salvage what it is that they had prior to the very traumatic events that befell them at the very start of the film? And this is also, I think, it becomes a film that is not just quote unquote a horror film, but it's also a film that is very much about human lives and about how one deals with loss and tragedy in this way. And I think the film poses many different possibilities in the context of John's story and Laura's story. Sometimes they converge, sometimes they diverge and add also further sources of tension, but that also leads to the realms of mystery and the unearthly and the afterlife, and yes, indeed, the spooky and terrifying and horrifying all the same, as well as a type of resolution, possibly anyway, when it comes to these questions about trauma and loss and tragedy. There are, and as I said, however, there are very intense moments. I mean, this film does venture into the territory of horror and violent scenes, and so please keep that in mind. Also, it does go into the territory of very intensely depicting scenes of emotional and physical connection. And so there is this a way in which this film is trying to present aspects of John and Laura's life vis-a-vis themselves and each other, both physically and sexually, and how they are responding to each other. So it has very frank depictions of human sexuality at some points, which may not be for everyone, but I think as part of the overall scope of this film, as well as a part of the touching stone discussion points of some of the supplements, I think this really serves a very important function of the film in that it's showing the gravity to which the characters are really trying to grapple with, as I say, the sense of loss and tragedy in their own lives, while also trying to come to terms with their relationship and how they feel vis-a-vis each other, and ideas about human emotion and connection and physical connection and sexuality. Yes, these are very much part of their relationship, and it's expressed, I think, in these very honest and emotionally intimate terms, which I think add to the way in which one can describe this film, Don't Look Now, as an intimate portrait of psychological profiles of characters that have undergone loss and how they try to deal with it in the context of Venice, in the context of their own family home life, in the context of the new people that they meet, in the context of a police procedural murder mystery thriller, and indeed a horror film, and as well as a film about darkness and shadows, and indeed also possibly salvation and the light. And so it is a blown experience. It is an experience that is wide in sweep and scope, and intense and very mysterious indeed. Let me again point to how this film is shot and handled. The shadows are augmented to show and yet not show. There are answers that seem to be revealed and yet inspire further questions to be asked. Is what we are seeing really what it is we think we are seeing, or is it something else entirely? Is something that occurs in the corner of the frame really what we think it is, or is it meant to represent something else? Is this color that appears in the color palette, does it serve a certain function, or is it somehow or another meaningless speck in the whole context of the universe, etc., and existence? These and other questions, I think, are part of the great dialogue that occurs when one watches Don't Look Now unfold before our very eyes as we watch the film. I think that has a lot to do with the way that the film is held together by the real wonderful poetically hectic way in which the editing holds things in place and yet elicits further questions. The haunting score, and which we'll talk about in terms of the music and some of the supplements and discussions. It's a Pino Donaggio score, very, very famous. And again, Pino Donaggio will appear in one of the supplements, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get there. But and of course, the name Nicolas Roeg. This film is, in many ways, one of his most famous films, and one of my favorite films by him. Unforgettable, intense, scary, haunting, beautiful, and oh, so much. This is what an experience this is. This is the work which is Don't Look Now. The Criterion Collection has released this film, Don't Look Now, at spine number 745, and it is releasing this in this new 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo edition package. I have already taken the liberty of removing the fold-out poster-like insert, which is part of this release, at least the one that I have here on in front of me. And when I open it up, I can see the inside of the plastic casing, excuse me. So on this side would go the insert that I was referring to just a moment ago. And on this side, we have the two discs, a type of storage mechanism, which we have seen in many other dual disc release from Criterion. So we have them, and my understanding is that the surfaces do not touch each other, but we have the 4K UHD disc and then the Blu-ray disc option. If I open up the poster, I see a note about the master, and I quote here, "Don't Look Now is presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.85 to 1. Undertaken by Studio Canal at Silver Salt Restoration in London and approved by Director of Photography Anthony Richmond, this digital master was created from the 35mm original camera negative and scanned in 4K resolution. The original monaural soundtrack was remastered from the 35mm magnetic track. The feature is presented in Dolby Vision HDR high dynamic range on the 4K Ultra HD disc and high definition SDR standard dynamic range on the Blu-ray." So I've seen this film many times, and I've seen this film many times also prior to the Blu-ray release, but then also in the context of the Criterion Blu-ray release from several years back. And then now I see this film again relying on the 4K UHD disc. And I saw it on our TV. We have another TV in a separate room, not this TV, but a larger TV that has a little bit more capabilities in terms of optimal quality, in terms of optimal watching experiences using that involve the 4K UHD viewing experience. So I saw this film again using or in the separate room, as I do with my 4K releases elsewhere, and so. I have always loved how this looked on the Criterion Blu-ray in the past. It had always looked, to me, the best that I'd ever seen it look. And I'd seen it before, say, on VHS and TV as well, growing up. But I must say that the 4K UHD viewing experience for me of this work, Don't Look Now, was and is amazing. I think it's a nice, close, very competitive race between the heights of the Blu-ray experience and then the heights of the 4K UHD experience. So I think if you opt for the Blu-ray experience at the end of the day, you're going for a really great option. So I think it takes nothing away from the greatness that was and is the Blu-ray SDR viewing experience with the Criterion release, which is now made again thanks to this 4K UHD combo, as well as the Blu-ray, which I understand based on the website is also being made available. So that's very good news. But it's also good news for people who opt for the 4K UHD format. And based on my own subjective viewpoint, I can say that I felt like there was, it might have been very nuanced, but I felt that there was a sense of depth. There is a sense of depth when I watched it on the Blu-ray, but there is a kind of pronounced sense of depth when I saw it in the 4K UHD capabilities that I had, especially with the shadowed scenes of corridors and deserted streets and the outdoors, the canals of Venice. This is really important. I had always viewed this film in a type of two-dimensional quality, which I think is very, I don't mean that in a negative way, I mean that in a very, very positive way, that there's a sense in which this film is relying on this idea of two-dimensionality or flatness, which I think is apropos a type of looking through or looking at photographs, looking at paintings or structures, this idea of something that is bursting forth, something that is captured in a frame or a photo that may or may not be real, and so that always added to the sense of the haunting nature of sort of the photographic effect, and that. In my own sort of two-dimensional or viewpoint, in my own viewpoint, looked at the two-dimensionality of this and really found it to be very haunting in that way, on a kind of subliminal psychological effect, perhaps. That being said, I really noticed this time just how three-dimensional a lot of the sequences are. And I think that's thanks in no small part due to the way in which I think a lot of the shadows and a lot of the dark scenes of darkness appear and emerge in the 4K UHD format. There's a sense of depth to this, which I think adds to the further sense of haunting, the sense of depth and the sense of emptiness. Or is it really empty? That adds to the haunting and to the feeling of being on edge, and it also gives a sense of who goes there. That kind of quality, which I think creates a sense of this further unnerving aspect, which I think is very much part of the strength of Don't Look Now. So I found myself totally enthralled by that, and so the way it looked and sound, it is a close competition if one looks at it as a competition. But for me personally, as great as the Blu-ray is, and I still think it's a great Blu-ray experience, the 4K UHD experience for me, in my very, very limited technical capacity expressive ways, I feel it edges it out for me ever so slightly. And so I was so pleased with the 4K UHD experience of watching Don't Look Now, both in terms of the look and the sound, and the way it has a sense of echo and dimensional quality to it. I think adds to the sense of haunting and the sense of space, empty or perhaps not so empty space. What a great experience it was. So at the end of the day, I think you're still in good hands with the Blu-ray, but you will definitely be in quite good hands indeed if you opt for the 4K UHD, as I'm sure I most likely will rely on as my default viewing choice going forward when revisiting this film, Don't Look Now. And so before I move on to the other aspects of this, let me just show very quickly. This is what the 4K UHD disc looks like, and in terms of this still image of the Blu-ray menu. So please let me show this. You can see that it just has the movie and chapters and subtitles, so there are no supplements. So we will go to the supplements, which will be found on the Blu-ray disc, and let's go to that disc right now. And so now what I've done is I've put the Blu-ray disc into the player, and so as you can see, the menu, the image looks pretty similar to what we saw in the earlier 4K UHD disc menu offering. But this time we also see an option for timeline, and then chapters, and then supplements. And so if we look at the supplements section, we can see a number of things, which I think will remind us of how this disc or how this release appeared in prior Criterion releases. So first up, we have Don't Look Now, Looking Back. And this is described as being this short making of documentary produced by Blue Underground in 2002. Features interviews with director Nicolas Roeg, cinematographer Anthony Richmond, and editor Graham Clifford. And this is approximately 19 minutes, and this is really, really wonderful. If you haven't seen it already, now's your chance. I love the Don't Look Now, Looking Back title, which I think, I'm not sure, it could be a play on Don't Look Now and another film which is called Don't Look Back. So Don't Look Now, Looking Back. Maybe it's a play on that, or not on purpose. I'm not sure, but in any event, it's an interesting play on the words Don't Look Now in relation to back or looking back, but also looking back in the context of looking back on the making of this film from the perspective of these three artists and collaborators. This idea of the use of the color red. I mean, many other colors are very important in this film, but red in particular. It's very important how it appears, what it means, what its significance is, who is wearing red, who is or who are wearing red, because there might be more than one. I don't know. It depends. And also talking about other ideas of coincidences and jumping, use of editing, and how that is also suggestive of jumping through space and time. Also talking about important choices of casting. Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland, of course, are our main protagonists, and what great performances they have. And a little bit is mentioned about their working relationship, because a lot has to do with, well, there's some really famous scenes, famous or infamous scenes, somewhat controversial scenes as well, having to do with what I mentioned before, how this film shows aspects of human emotion and physical contact and sexuality. There's also discussion here about the very, very famous way this film ends, and I'll just leave it at that. But in any event, please check this out if you can. It is 19 minutes. I would suggest, because it does reveal some aspects of details of the film, so watch the film Don't Look Now first, if you haven't done so already, and you can watch then this great documentary, Don't Look Now, Looking Back, from 2002. And it hasn't aged. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. Next is Death in Venice, and this is described as, in this 2006 interview produced by Blue Underground and conducted in Venice, composer Pino Donaggio discusses writing the music for Don't Look Now. And this is approximately 17 minutes. This is so wonderful. This is absolutely wonderful. Pino Donaggio, legendary, absolutely legendary. And Pino Donaggio speaks a little bit here about his work with other filmmakers like Brian De Palma, and he also talks about the circumstances in his very, very active musical career prior to his work in film scores, and how he ended up working with Nicolas Roeg on Don't Look Now. And it is a fantastic interview, and Pino Donaggio's contribution here, it cannot be emphasized enough. The strength of it. It is this film. It's great for so many reasons. One of the reasons why is the wonderful nature of the score. It is haunting. It is delicate. There are some moments too where Pino Donaggio mentions how the instrumentation, the musical, the way in which it was expressed via the actual playing of the relevant instrument at the time. Sometimes Nicolas Roeg was encouraging almost a type of imperfection. Sometimes there would be lags, or there would be somewhat delays in how the meter or the beats were kept or not kept, as the case may be. So sometimes even in mid-play, the tempo or the speed would speed up or slow down, which I think is so great. It adds to a sense of almost the slightly being on edge, while also emphasizing the haunting, homemade quality of some of the musical pieces. And he also talks about too how some scenes, how he was thinking about maybe a certain type of orchestration on the one hand, but then it ended up being a different type of instrumentation as well, which is also very fascinating. How the same tune or the same piece of music can have a different, or acquire a different type of flavor depending on what the instruments are, and really affects the scenes that those musical pieces are used in this film quite effectively indeed. As well as how this film and the work on this really affected Pino Donaggio's career. And as I mentioned, Pino Donaggio, really active and very famous career prior to his work with film scores, and this being his first venture in this new world for him. And then it was another legendary chapter in his life and career was born, in a manner of speaking. So well done. This is a great interview. Please check it out if you can. This is approximately 17 minutes. And then we have something interesting, which is, in this piece, assembled from recent interviews, co-screenwriter Alan Scott, cinematographer Anthony Richmond, and actors Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland discuss director Nicolas Roeg and the writing and shooting of Don't Look Now. This is approximately 30 minutes in total, and it's editing, compiling these various interviews together in this very seamless and very easy to follow another making of documentary. It's really wonderful. And Alan Scott talks about the idea of the how the script was, how the script came to being, the idea of working and reworking on the script, working with Nicolas Roeg in this capacity. And also we have some comments from Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland in terms of their working relationship together, and how that was so key in terms of showing the relationship between our two protagonists on screen. And also the idea of importance of certain aspects of dialogue, and the dialogue itself holding keys of mystery. images that are very important: broken glass, water, sometimes spills, which are also very important, as well as the color red, which I mentioned before. And then there's some mentioning too, as was mentioned elsewhere, about how this film has some scenes depicting human sexuality, and how, what was involved in that, and what are some of the ways in which one can watch those scenes in the context of the film overall. Not in the sense of sort of exploitation, but in the sense of a real contextual significance vis-a-vis the story and the character arcs that are involved. So really wonderful. This is great stuff. Approximately 30 minutes, so please check this out if you can. And then we have Nicolas Roeg, The Enigma of Film. In the following piece, assembled from recent interviews, filmmakers Danny Boyle and Steven Soderbergh discuss Don't Look Now, Nicolas Roeg's directorial style, and his influence on their careers. This is approximately 14 minutes. And each of these filmmakers speaks about, for instance, how Nicolas Roeg's style, his editing, his approach to craft, and his approach to almost this idea of linearity, how that has affected their own approaches in films that they have made, such as Trainspotting for Danny Boyle. Out of Sight is mentioned in the context of Steven Soderbergh. They have this great affection for Nicolas Roeg's films. They speak about Don't Look Now and others. It's great to see the great legacy of Nicolas Roeg, and how much of an impact he has made in the world of cinema and in the following generations, such as Danny Boyle and Steven Soderbergh. Fantastic stuff. So please check this out if you can. It's approximately 14 minutes. That's not all, because then we get Graham Clifford and Bobby Osteen. In the following conversation, recorded by the Criterion Collection in November 2014, film writer and historian Bobby Osteen talks with Don't Look Now editor Graham Clifford about working with director Nicolas Roeg and the innovative cutting style used for the film. This is great. This is approximately 43 minutes, 43 minutes. So it's, and it goes by so quickly. It's wonderful because they speak together, and Graham Clifford is asked about many specifics about editing choices, and what the materials were, and how certain choices of editing really were serving to augment specific points of mystery and the like. And it really goes into specifics. So it's almost like its own scene by scene commentary, in a manner of speaking, with Graham Clifford giving his details as to what choices were made, what materials were available, what coverage had occurred or not occurred, as the case may be, and what he was doing with whatever coverage had occurred and what was available to him. So he's talking too about where he was coming in terms of his career, McCabe and Mrs. Miller, working with Robert Altman, working with and knowing Julie Christie, and how that formed the way in which he ended up being able to work with Nicolas Roeg on this work and others. And also the idea, again, as mentioned here, very famous or infamous scenes, controversial scenes are also mentioned here that were regarded, and perhaps still are regarded, as controversial. Again, I draw your attention to how sexuality is shown in certain key sequences of the film. And here Graham Clifford talks, I think, in very frank and very earnest terms about how to view those, and what was the situation involved in terms of the footage and the shooting of those. Please check this out. This is, as I say, it's like its own scene-by-scene commentary. It is that detailed, and it's that brilliant. So please check this out if you can. Approximately 43 minutes, 43 minutes. A Criterion Collection supplement from circa 2014. Then we get Nicolas Roeg at Ciné Lumière. This Q&A with director Nicolas Roeg, hosted by film writer Paul Ryan, followed a screening of Don't Look Now at the Institut Français Ciné Lumière in London in 2003. So this is a Q&A with Nicolas Roeg sitting on the stage, speaking a little bit to the approach, the cinematic philosophy in terms of approach and style, and how that figures into subjective interpretations, which is a part of Don't Look Now, and also part of Nicolas Roeg's filmography writ large, one can say. If one thinks of films like The Man Who Felt Earth or Walkabout, etc. So really brilliant stuff. And then it also goes into questions that from the audience as well, So it's a real great further revelation into the cinematic stylings and insights and approach and philosophy of Nicolas Roeg in the context of Don't Look Now and others. This is great. This is approximately 48 minutes. So again, this also goes by so quickly. It's like a little master class in and of itself. Great stuff indeed. So please check that out as well as you can. It's from 2003. And then the supplements end with a trailer. So we are getting a lot. We got a lot before in the previous releases, so I'm glad to see that repeated here or carried over here for purposes of this new release in 2020 or re-release in 2023. I don't see anything that's like new in terms of 2023 produced supplement per se. That would have been nice, but I think what we already had before and what we are getting now is absolutely great. It's a great reminder of what Criterion can do in terms of packing its releases with supplements, and they are long and robust. Many of them are, and they're all very, very useful and filled with so much knowledge and information. So. Great stuff to be able to have this a reminder of what we saw before and what we have now, thanks to this re-emergence of this title in the physical media catalog from Criterion. Well done, well done. And so now let me focus on the presentation or packaging itself. So this has two discs, one being the color black and one being the color red. The red color one being the 4K UHD disc and the black colored one being the Blu-ray disc. So I like that. I like it when Criterion makes its discs different, so I like that detail very much. And then, excuse me here for my poor presentation, so I hope you can forgive me. Sorry about that. And then just a note about the leaflet. You know, this is a poster fold out, and I'm not a big fan of the poster fold out, to be perfectly honest. I would much rather see the more robust staple booklet type, but that's okay because we get artwork, which is interesting. It has this different motif to what we had seen with this cover art, which is the use of the red against white and something to do with maybe it looks like a piece of clothing, and here which looks like a map of some sort. So it's also linking two very significant images, symbols that are important with the purposes of this film. Production credits indicate art director Sarah Habibi, designer Fred Davis, art production coordinator William Braze, and art assistant Julie Sussman. That's the artwork, and it's great artwork, and it's nice to see that repeated from the earlier Criterion release from several years back. And then we also have the essay by David Thompson, Seeing Red. It's a really great essay, so please check it out if you can, in terms of watching the film first and then reading this great essay. So Don't Look Now is back in the Criterion collection, and it's really wonderful to see. Sorry about this. The sun is in the way there. I apologize. So now let me adjust here. So Don't Look Now is maybe that's something of a haunting, something that's telling something otherworldly, something ethereal, and of the afterlife that's telling me to keep on with my video discussion here. So a la Don't Look Now. But whatever the case is, my dear friends, that is Don't Look Now. It is back in the Criterion collection, and it's wonderful to see it back. It is a wonderful film, haunting, scary, very emotional, and very, very filled with meaning and mystery, which I think is the hallmark of so many great works by Nicolas Roeg, including this one. What a great film this is, Don't Look Now. So, yes, I see the ethereal afterlife glow creeping into the frame here. So that's probably my cue to say, let me end it here and say thank you very much for now. But until the next video, my dear friends, please continue to be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great movies, including Don't Look Now, including the works of Nicolas Roeg and beyond. So until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.